spokesperson for Montreal Comic Con. Fancy pour notre 15e édition. Alors, j'espère que vous êtes excités. You have something coming up right now that is so amazing. But before, I want to let you know, no flash photography, please, and try to keep your filming to a minimum. Put your phone down and enjoy this, because this is going to be a lot of fun. Without any further ado, mesdames et messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ian McDiarmid!
Bienvenue du côté chambre. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the dark side.
So, first off, I hope my sneakers don't offend you.
Say again?
I hope my sneakers don't offend you.
They do. Take them off.
Thank you so much for being here in Montreal.
It's a pleasure.
It's so nice to have you. You know, every once in a while we'll announce a guest. We've been doing this for 15 years, but we'll announce a guest every once in a while that you really can tell that there's something different. That people are just, there's a fever pitch that hits. And when we announced you, we saw it on our social media. People were going crazy. And as you can see, this is the big room. And everybody showed, so. It's very, it's crazy when you see somebody for so many years on screen, you spend time with them, you watch a movie that you watch over and over again with generations, with your kids, and then you finally are face to face with someone that plays those roles. But you know that for that person, it was a job that they did and then they moved on.
Yeah. Not bad. 40 years. Continuing progress. Getting worse over the years, you know. Best for me, worse for him. It's just amazing how many people seem to like the dark side. I worry about you.
There's really something special about the dark side because it's, you know, because of everything that goes on in Star Wars, and there's always that push and pull, and you can almost go dark and you can almost come back. Yeah. When you had the chance to really dig your teeth into that role with the prequels, it must have been fun for you as an actor to be able to stretch a little bit more.
Yes, well, it was, you know, I knew nothing. I got the phone call one day, would you come and meet George Lucas? Oh, yes, probably. And suddenly I was the Emperor of the Universe. And then a few years later, I was just a humble senator who was going to be the Emperor of the Universe. So it was great to sort of have an idea initially that he had a backstory, and then to be able to enact it. Usually with acting it works the other way around, you know, you do the backstory and then you find out the progression. But it was kind of appropriate, I think, that Palpatine should work backwards. But it was a great experience, and then of course they asked me to come back and be killed all over again.
You know, we get to further go into the Palpatine lore when we get into the sequels,
yeah.
And that was wonderful. No one really saw that coming, and it was great. I guess for you as a character arc to see that come around and then to have the Palpatine lore continue, it must have been satisfying.
Yes, yeah, it was a surprise when J.J. Abrams called to say they were bringing him back. But a lot of people said, well, he's dead, you know, that was a pretty convincing ending he had all those years back in Return of the Jedi. But I thought, yeah, well, he's probably terribly maimed, but he'll always have something up that capacious sleeve. And I think he prepared Plan B. You know, he had a very good medical unit downstairs, just in case. And so it was great that he was reconstructed. And then we talked a bit about, you know, how bad the body was. And JJ went, oh, pretty bad. And then introduced me to this astral wheelchair. So I realized how bad it was, but that was fun. These four guys, you know, they strapped me in and then they took me up into the air and they flew me everywhere, all over this gigantic studio. And people, they kept saying, "You're right, you're feeling all right." I said, "I'm feeling great. I've never had so much fun in my life." Just poor Daisy Ridley, because I, towered over her. She was terrified I was going to fall on top of her. Not really. She was more worried about me than anything else, but I couldn't have been happier. So it was a very nice way to have a reincarnation.
Obviously you've done a lot of other stuff as well.
Yeah.
Could you tell me something that you've done maybe in the last 10 years that you're extremely proud of besides Star Wars?
Well, it's interesting. As I get closer to the age of the Emperor, the parts, they become quite more specifically interesting. And the most recent play I did is called The Caretaker, in which I played a dirty old 80-year-old tramp, which there's a lot to draw on there. But it's a great play, and I was on stage with 3 other wonderful actors in one of the best theatres in England. And that was very exciting to do. And the play was written by Harold Pinter, who some of you will know was a great English playwright. And when I ran the Almeida Theatre in London with my colleague, we were fortunate enough to get him to work with us. And in fact, we did his very last new play. So there was a sort of, sentimental attachment to the whole thing. But the most exciting thing was to be on that stage, as it always is, with the other actors for quite a long time, and find people listening the way you seem to be listening now, which is great.
Yeah, there's something special about being on stage and acting live. It's a whole different thing.
Yeah, it's the best thing for me. I mean, I'm not complaining about movies or anything like that, but you have to be in the moment, and you are in the moment, and the audience is in the moment. And although you've learned the lines, etc., technically anything can happen.
Right.
And that's what's exciting. Scary sometimes, but by and large, exciting. So lucky me.
Now we have some microphones set up on each side of the room, one there and one there. So if you see our volunteers with their hands up, if you'd like to ask the Emperor a question, feel free, please.
Here we go.
Yes. Hi.
Hello.
Now, I just have a question. What are your thoughts and feelings towards how, with works of art, works of creation, films, shows, comic books, anything, can we change the world?
Yes, that's a very good question, and the short answer is yes. Maybe not immediately, but one way or another, you can change people's thinking and how they feel about things. And back to what I was saying earlier, the thing about acting on stage is that you feel that everybody's alone in the dark, even though they've come with friends and so on. Alone with maybe dark and friends, but most of all their imagination. And that's where all the best things work, I think. And it's our job, we who get the chance to act, I think, to help stimulate the imagination. We don't have to sort of be political or make statements or anything like that, but we can just maybe shift people's thinking just a little bit, or even better than that, make them think of things they hadn't even thought of before, sitting there in the dark on one night, you hope a few more nights of their lives.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I was wondering, during the filming of Star Wars, were the makeup prosthetic painful to wear and remove?
No. It was the first one in Jedi. It took about 4 hours. And Nick Dudman, the great Nick Dudman, who was really at the beginning of his career as a makeup artist, he went on to do lots of great things, the whole Harry Potter series for one. And I said, what can I do to help? And he said, you can fall asleep. He wanted my face to be as still as possible. So, it was 4 o'clock in the morning, so that wasn't too difficult, and it took a long time. And so eventually I woke up after he worked on me. I looked in the mirror, I screamed. And then I realized I was the Emperor of the Universe. I thought, my God, that's what he looks like. Because nobody told me anything. I didn't know what age I was, et cetera, et cetera. And as a result of seeing him, I found this voice just sort of happened. Because he was a revolting old reptile. And we've all got a revolting old reptile voice in us, if we really dig a little deeper. So I dug, and out he came.
Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Grace and my dad's a huge Star Trek. I'm a
Rich.
Star Wars fan.
Star Trek.
Stories.
Yes. Some people are here from Star Trek.
I'm also a big fan myself. I'm asking, would you ever play Palpatine again if Lucas called you for the part?
Why would I do that? Yes, of course. I don't want anyone else to play it. But the whole Star Wars experience has been a whole series of surprises. It went on over a period of time, over 40 years, as I'm sure you know. And first time, I got lucky because it was supposed to be another actor, an older actor, who was more appropriate, really, than me for the part, but they weren't able to insure him. I think he couldn't take the contact lenses, which was a big deal in those days, and they were made of glass, so, that was an issue. But I got lucky for the Jedi, and then when George called and said he was doing the prequels, and it was going to be, Palpatine's story, I thought I got lucky again, and then JJ called, for the latest film. And so, the phrase, third time lucky, well, I got lucky 3 times.
Thank you.
Hey, my name is Jeremy, and I'm actually a stage actor myself.
Great.
So when I got to know that you were going to be here, I got very excited. But today I represent a different group, and we had a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Your career is marked by roles of power and moral ambiguity. How was or has your perception of evil evolved through your characters? And is there a part of you that has been permanently transformed by Palpatine?
Good one.
Yeah, I'll leave you all to judge whether I've been permanently damaged. But there's a friend of mine in the wings who probably would think I have been. But no, not really. The interesting thing about evil, actually, the more interesting than playing evil is playing power. Power is such an interesting thing, and as an actor, I've always been drawn to these kind of parts. I try to understand what it is about power that gets to people so much. You can see while everybody wants a bit of it, and most people, they want a few dollars, and so on, and you have to, get a bit of power to get a bit of that. But it's always fascinated me that people who get power never seem to have enough. It's a bit like money. I think that, you could do anything you want now. You don't have to work, or you can do interesting work, do something else. No, you have to go on and make more money and find ways of becoming more powerful. It's never enough. So it's that sort of nature of human nature in some ways, but it's a kind of greed drug that has always interested me as an actor, and it's always interesting to try and portray that. And so I suppose that's a slightly indefinite answer to your question. And good luck with your group.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, power can be dangerous,
Yes,
especially when it's unlimited.
it can. Yeah. Phrase maker. Yeah, that's true. Yes, and of course the thing about Palpatine is he wanted the power to be unlimited, and in the end, it's interesting. It isn't without limit. Whatever you want, and however clever or manipulated you are, eventually things fall apart. And if you create an empire, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually it will collapse from within. That's what history tells us. So, fingers crossed.
Okay, Marker.
Hello.
Oh, hello. I'm Philippe Ouellet des Ormeaux. Nice to meet you. Rencontrer le mal incarné. Meaning evil incarnate in French, if you didn't know what it means.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm really a fan. I'm a really autistic geek, if you want to know.
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's a question a bit, let's say that if you want to know, when you say youth, what's your name again?
Me?
Yeah, again, I forget sometimes, sorry.
Jason.
Jason, yeah, sorry. I'm really forgetful sometimes. Okay, when you say that, Jason, that we all are to the dark side, well, do something to tell you, Ian. In a way, I want to be a dark side, but I don't want to be evil, if you know what I mean.
No.
Well, let's say that I'm more actually kind of a Hellboy kind of guy, or Dante from The Devil May Cry. Some characters that like the dark side, but they're not evil.
Uh-huh.
And the point is that my question is that I remember that you said that your character is more evil than Satan, right?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I was thinking like, it feels like if Hellboy or Dante fought you.
Well, the thing about Satan and Palpatine is, Palpatine is, I suppose, as near as you can get to pure evil. I once called him a solid block of evil. Satan, well, he's out for revenge. I'm not saying Palpatine doesn't want it, because, he got chucked out of heaven for being overambitious.
Yeah.
And then he set up his own little club.
Yeah.
And in the great poem by Milton, Paradise Lost, you follow Satan.
Yeah.
And you do, maybe not sympathize with him, but you understand his problem.
Yeah.
And if you're playing, let's put Palpatine to the side for one moment, if you're playing a so-called evil character, you want to try and find aspects of him that aren't immediately recognizable as that. And humor is something that really helps.
Yeah, well, that's...
And also the great thing about Palpatine, he could be deeply sarcastic.
Well, it does show some, he was... I did buy this episode about apparently the macro ship and the Clone Wars, the episodes in which they almost been cut. Well, I did say your character, of course, it was not you who voiced him, but you did say it in not really a deep thing, but you'd say it was really tragic about Top's death, the clone. And it was not really deep.
Okay, well, listen, thank you for your question and your views.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Start on this side.
Hi. So my question was, would you agree that for a good story, whether it be a movie or a play, it could be defined by a good villain?
Many can, yes. You don't have to have a villain in the story to tell a good one. But it's, it's all about opposing forces, isn't it? Good and evil, good and bad. So I think audiences like that as a sort of basic premise. But there are lots of happy films as well, in which people laugh a lot and not with an ulterior motive. But a good story usually has a good villain. I think that's probably true. You'd say that about Shakespeare. The interesting thing about a lot of Shakespeare's plays is that they sometimes start off being decent and end up being corrupted by, jealousy, revenge, the need for money, or the need for power. And that's a good story too. I mean, George is very unpretentious, but I think that Star Wars has a kind of Shakespearean arc. I mean, the story of Vader is a sort of Shakespearean, innocence, strength, attractiveness, corrupted by this person, this character, but also by something in him. And that's where Palpatine's very clever. He knows it's there, and he realizes it's his job to bring it out, not per se, but so that he can, in a sense, be his vicar on earth, or vicar in the universe, and maybe take over after he dies. Although I don't think, as the last film proved, Palpatine ever thinks very much about death.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much.
Hi.
Hello. You've actually kind of already touched on a few things I might want to ask about. I'm someone who's grew up with Star Wars and watched it as a kid, young adult, and older adult now. And one thing that strikes me, and you mentioned Shakespeare, is how much those stories stick with us, and and as we grow, they're the same story, but they hit us differently. And I would put Star Wars in that category. I would put Star Trek in that category as well. A lot of media. And I just wonder what you think about being part of that, and any thoughts you have on that beyond what you've already said. Because I think it's really cool.
I think probably one of you talking about what makes a good work of art. I think one of the things that makes a good art is a story that can be retold at different times. It's the same story, and you probably tell it with different emphasis. But basically, this is depressing in some way. It's like saying you never learn from history, but by and large, people don't. But for example, there are lots of Shakespeare revivals in our country. I mean, he's a great playwright, and why wouldn't there be? But that's because he never ceases to be relevant. And you don't have to put him in modern dress, do all that and make some changes to the lines. That's maybe you can cut a few, that's not a bad idea. But because it's all there, and it's there to be reminded. And sometimes when people hear quotations, well, what have become quotations over the years, they can't believe that Shakespeare actually said that, because they probably said it to somebody yesterday. So it's about the living power of art, but in order for something to really last, the initiator, the person who first created it, has to be something of a genius. That was certainly Shakespeare, and frankly, although he'd be embarrassed to hear it, I think that's true of George as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think they're okay. These guys are okay.
Oh yes. Oh yes, what are you doing here? Good makeup.
Right?
How long did it take you? It's a mask, he cheated. You look great.
This side over here.
Hi.
Film. I am the power!
Sorry, you haven't got the part. It's good though. Good attempt, good try.
Well, as a collector of VHS in French, well, do you have a certain feeling of nostalgia with tapes and DVD?
Are you a fan of physical media like VHS and DVD? And
Yeah, well, I have a collection. They're not much use to me now, are they? VHS, DVD. Yes. And when I got a new TV, with all the bells and whistles, and they took away the old one, they also took away my DVD player. Someone said, "Don't worry, you could get another one." So that was a relief. But yeah, I kind of miss the old. It's like, long playing records. The whole process of putting it in, putting the stylus on the gramophone, all that. See, gramophone. That's what I grew up with. I'm still trying to catch up with all you guys. But yes, is the answer to your question. I like all that stuff.
thank you very much. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Hello. Well, first, sorry for my English. It's not very good.
Hello, my French.
I'm better with Spanish and French.
Okay.
My question is, I wanted to know what is your favorite Star Wars movie, and also what is your favorite non-Star Wars movie? Maybe a Sleepy Hollow or...
Okay. Well, I mustn't get, too self-advertising. My favorite Star Wars movie, that's an easy one, Revenge of the Sith. Bon anniversaire, Revenge of the Sith. 25 years. And, there are so many movies I like. But the one that had the most influence on me when I was at drama school was an American movie, Bonnie and Clyde. And that was, you know, about bad people whom you sympathize with up to a point. And it also, as what I was talking about earlier, it was also very funny. And then I thought it's wonderful you can combine all of those elements in a movie. And that's when I, you know, as far as films are concerned, really started to think about the possibility of that kind of art. And you could do all those things in the space of 2 hours. And that's sort of, in a way, what I look for in stuff that comes my way and try to achieve, a balance of all these things. And also to hope that the audience is, back to what I said earlier, just to slightly keep you off guard, not to do anything bad, but just to fill you with surprise. When you expect one thing, something else can happen.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Ian. First and foremost, I want to say a huge thank you on behalf of all fans. But my question is, which of the Star Wars films, or any of your films, did you enjoy working on the most?
Well, I suppose I'm back to Revenge of the Sith, simply because, you know, I had more to do, to be frank, and more lines to learn, which is great. But also the atmosphere was different. When I was doing the other movies, I was also doing other things. And I had, when we started work on Revenge of the Sith, I'd left the theatre that I was running with my colleague, John Ken. And so I was free to give my thoughts entirely to that. And we were in Australia, and I was there for the whole shoot, which makes a difference. It was just, you know, it was very relaxing. And it also, I mean, you get a script from George, it's by and large what you're going to do, no complaints there. But he was also prepared, George, to sort of change it a bit as a result of what he saw. And the big scene in Revenge of the Sith between me and Hayden, when I finally nail him, that was going to take place in yet another office. It was going to be bigger and better, of course. All the offices kept growing. Not digitally, by the way. They were always real, massive sets. But George said, "Well, I think we've had too many offices. Let's go to the theatre. Anyway, you like the theatre, so let's go there." So he set it in the theatre, which gave it its internal dynamic. It meant that I could, Hayden and I, we were just sat as Jason and I are sat now. And actually the chair is very familiar. And we could just talk to each other, which is always good. There was a camera up there and there. They were very low down to make me look as hideous as possible. And we got on with the scene. But the great gift of it was I could indicate my thoughts to you by looking at the show we were watching. Now, at the time, I didn't know it was going to be a squid ballet. But so I came to him, and then I could, pretend as it were, watch the show while thinking, has the poison gone in yet? So it was that was a great gift as an actor. But it was a strange day. It was a busy day. It was a day when I got rid of Sam Jackson. And yes, I did get rid of him, despite what you said subsequently. And I got half of the dust of the studio in my mouth because they were driving these enormous wind machines towards me, as you probably remember. I could hardly keep my face on. Anyway, that's why it's part of the fun, as I said, but I was a little hoarse. And so when George said, I think we should do the scene at the opera now, I mean, I prepared for it, but it was a long Friday, and I thought, well, he'll leave it till Monday. He said, no, I think we should just do it. Let's see what happens. And I said, well, that's fine, but I'm a little worried about my voice. It's going to sound a little croaky. And he went, that's great. It'll sound as if it's in transition. And that's true, so out of my disability, we sort of made something. And I don't know how much he improved that, when they went to put the proper sound in. But I thought, no, that's right, that's an advantage. He's not, he's sort of, as he's getting his way with Anakin, so he is slowly turning into this horrible creature that you were about to see a few frames later.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Hi Ian, my
Hi.
name's Tyler.
Tyler.
Ian, there's many powerful villains in movie and media history. I'm curious to know, outside of Palpatine, who's your favorite and why?
Count Dracula, Christopher Lee. Because he did something, that the sort of thing I've been talking about. They're horror films made to be entertaining and make your flesh crawl and all the rest of it. Christopher brought a sort of underlying melancholy to the character. You didn't sympathize with him, you didn't want to do these terrible things. And also the idea that he had to be shut up in a casket at the end of the day. And he was very good, Christopher, at indicating a kind of inner pain while portraying an outer evil. There's not much of that in Palpatine, I'm afraid. It's his is a different story. But I admired that, from the first time I saw him. And then, guess what? I got to work with him in Star Wars, which was a thrill to me. And get to meet him because he was a charming man. And he had the greatest, deepest voice. Well, no, that's James Earl Jones. Sorry, James Earl Jones. The second greatest, deepest voice in movies. And I'm always like actors who can really, take it down. And it was interesting with Christopher because he'd always wanted to be an opera singer. And he would have been an amazing bass. Boris Godunov, which is a great opera for that. And indeed, when he was getting ready to go on his dressing room, which was next door to mine when we were in the studio, I would hear him, murmur a few notes from that opera, and that was great.
Thank you.
Yes, so my question is not a very serious one, but a lot of people are saying that the new Pope kind of looks like you. Some are even making memes about him telling the tragedy of Darth Francis the Wise.
Oh, tell me
Do you
about
agree
me.
with them, or?
Yes, now isn't that interesting? Because the previous Pope but one, the German Pope, whose name tentatively escapes me, people said that he looked like Palpatine. So there's obviously a sort of Palpatine place. There's the word P, isn't there? Connection. But, the guy's just started the job. Let's give him a break.
Thank you.
Hello.
I'm a big fan. I have 2 questions.
Okay.
Could you say execute order 66?
And your next question?
What was it like fighting a little green imaginary hobgoblin while doing backflips?
That's a good question. I should have just cut short and said, execute Yoda, but I didn't. It was nuts. I mean, talk about flying machines. It was just this day, George said, okay, we're going to do the Yoda fight. Yoda fight. Basically, what I had to do was jump up and down, look evil, and swish my saber about. And we did that for at least half an hour. After which he said, okay, we got it, have a coffee. And then I saw it on screen. I thought, my God, did I do that? And the answer was no. But it was fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
I wanted to ask you, do you know much about the Old Republic?
Not much, no.
Oh, okay. Because I wanted to ask you if, in terms of power, you think Emperor Valkorion is more powerful or evil than Palpatine? Like maybe evil or power?
I'm not qualified to judge, really. I think there's no one more evil than Palpatine, though, so that's a short answer to your question.
I was asking because, well, Koyan, he had kids. And
Yes, it was,
friends.
and I certainly, you know, and Darren Stamp, you know, he was, well, just, you know, below him. We were in that day up these pods. I don't know if you know this, but they were indeed gigantic pods in the studio. And we were there, but although we met each other, had a coffee, we never saw each other because the camera was on us and there was no need really for 5 million or however many senators were to turn up. So it was from that point of view, you know, that's your real introduction to digital filmmaking, which of course then was, well, unique. The second prequel was really the first time it was wholly embraced. There was a good bit of it in the first. So it was the first time we were really staring at things that weren't human beings, sometimes tennis balls on the end of sticks and so on. So that was what was interesting. And unfortunately I didn't get to play the scene with Terry Stamp, you know, because that was on another day. And, but it was, yeah, it was interesting because I knew that there had to be thoughts in my head about the progression of Palpatine. But I didn't know what these thoughts were because George wouldn't tell me. So I had to sort of imagine a kind of backstory. And he said, actually, don't imagine too much. Just think of him as an ordinary politician, you know, not necessarily that unlikable, you know. The Queen likes him, seems to work well, you know, together. And that was a very good note. And the only thing he'd said one day that was extremely helpful, I've said this before, and of course it was my face. I didn't have a little bit of pantstick makeup on, but I didn't have anything that wasn't me, apart from the hair. Thank you very much. So George said, well, think of your eyes, Ian's eyes, as Sidious's eyes. In other words, they're not real. They're like contact lenses. The real person is behind them. And that's back to imagination again. That was a wonderful note. That, I mean, it didn't mean I was going to do anything, but just thinking that, you know, when looking at people and smiling and being, you know, generally charming as a politician, underneath was this monster.
Thank you. Thanks.
Hello, Ian. I have two questions.
Okay.
The first one, can you say, do it with the Emperor's voice?
I might at the end of the proceedings.
And the second one, do you think that that Star Wars is an analogy to the Bible in some way?
I suppose so. There's lots of, because it's so rich and so full of characters and shifts of story. Yeah, I suppose you could find ways of making those comparisons, but I wouldn't be so bold.
Thank you very much. So we have time for, I'm sorry, I know the guys are lined up, but we have time for 2 more questions. So we'll go on this side, and then we'll go on this side. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for, so, but go ahead.
Okay, hi. My name is Kobe, and my question for you is, how did you feel with the ending of Palpatine's story, with the way it all unfolded and being taken out by your own granddaughter?
Never trust your granddaughter. But is he dead? Yes, of course he is. Nobody can survive that. But you know, there are ghosts, aren't there? Who knows, you know? Yes, it was really, really interesting to find out that I was going to be no match for my granddaughter. It was very interesting to find out that I had a granddaughter when I got the script, you know. But that's the world, and it's fun. You think, oh, okay. I wonder if it would have helped if I'd known that earlier. And then you think, no, it wouldn't, so it's fine.
Thank you so much.
Hi there, Ian.
Hi.
Out of all of us and myself, thank you for playing the role of the Emperor, for all our childhoods. That's number one. But you weren't always the Emperor.
No.
Obviously, in the original episode 5, Clive Revel did the voice, and Marjorie Eaton did the physical.
That's right.
So I was just wondering, what was it like getting the role of Palpatine in '83? You know, learning the role, who Palpatine was, and to extend to that, your first impressions of the Star Wars franchise itself, and your first impressions to George.
Yeah. The last bit first, I didn't get a chance to put questions to George on that first day, because, you know, the car arrived, I got in it, I met him and Richard Marquand, the director of Return of the Jedi, in their lunch hour, and we didn't talk about, I can't remember the conversation, I wish I could, but it was just a pleasant, you know, hello, how are you, and things. And I didn't learn anything about anything, least of all that I got the part. All that I learned as I was going out, George denies this, but it's true. As I was going out the door, I heard him murmur to Richard Marquand, "Great nose." And I thought, well, I've met George Lucas and he likes my nose. Then it all became clear that nose could peep out from a very large hood, you know, and would attract the light, you know. And so that's what he was thinking, I guess. Sorry, what was the first part of your question? I've forgotten. I got my
The first part was, what was it like getting the role of Palpatine the first time in '83?
Yes, it was. The word is surprised. I mean, I said I was lucky. I was lucky, but it was always been a series of surprises. I mean, I didn't know how he'd look. And Emperor, I thought, oh, that's great. Maybe he'd be like a Chinese emperor, with rich, fabulous gowns and people taking my train and things like that. And then what looked like Harrison Ford's dressing gown arrived. Actually, he had a very nice dressing gown. I don't mean to be disrespectful. It was a black coat with a hood. And of course, initially I was disappointed. It was only later I realized it was absolutely brilliant. And of course, it could be filmed, you know. The black would enclose me, and my head would almost be floating at various points. So always that was exciting. So first of all, I found my face, I supplied the voice, I got the contact, they gave me eyes, they gave me a stick. So slowly, it's a bit like a surgical operation, they assembled my character. But then, mainly through the voice, I could bring my own, invention to it. And nobody's certain in those days whether that's going to be what's required, because there's hardly ever time to discuss character and so on. But fortunately for me, George thought the direction I was going in and the way I attacked, it's a good word, his script was right. And you talked about Clive Revel, and I'm so sorry he's no longer with us, he died quite recently. Very fine actor, great on stage as well as in the movies. Long-time member of the Royal Shakespeare Company, played Fagin and Oliver on Broadway, all of these things. And it must have been disappointing for him not to be me, as it were, not to be Palpatine, but he was very gracious about it. And during the filming of Return of the Jedi, Richard Marquand said, "I'm going to give you a tape of Clive Revel in the Empire. And if you get your voice close to his, George might let you keep it." And I was fairly astounded, because I thought nobody'd said the voice I was using was wrong, you know. So I didn't listen to the tape, and I continued doing what I was doing. And then at the recording session, cut a long story short, George let me keep it. So that was good. But I did, every time I saw Clive, I felt a little bit guilty, but he was one of nature's gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, if you can make it really quick, you can ask the last question. But you gotta make it really fast.
Hello, Ian. My name is Alex. I was born in 1992 when after 7 years, I watched Star Wars The Phantom Menace back in 1999. And following all the way after 25 years, it became the anniversary. It was so amazing. So my question here is, what was your favorite part of playing Palpatine, aka Darth Sidious, in every one of the Star Wars franchise films.
Yes, it really that long ago. I suppose I'm just relieved I survived in order to play him in all his incarnations. But the most enjoyable part was when the monster was released. You know, remember that day when power, absolute power. No, I'm not going to do it. Came out of my mouth, and I, screamed and shouted and did all sorts of, I thought, terrible bits of acting. I said, "Oh, George, I'm doing too much. Should I take it down?" "Don't take it down. Go further." So, and I don't really watch the films that much, but every now and again I see one of those excerpts, and I have to laugh because I think it is a bit too much. But then Palpatine was a bit too much, so there you are. Thank you for your question.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really, really appreciate you taking this time with all of us. I can tell you that everybody here appreciates it, and we're so happy you came on our show.